So it's apparently come to this. California wants to protect its citizens and enforce laws and make sure that ICE agents comply with the law. And they've just announced that they're going to do this, and they're going to make sure that ICE agents don't violate people's civil rights and don't violate people's due process. And they've said that they will arrest ICE agents or direct police departments within California to arrest ICE agents if they do those things. And the Justice Department, instead of saying that they're going to comply with the law, they come back and threaten to arrest California's governor, attorney general, and even Nancy Pelosi. Just wild stuff. And we're talking about that today. We're going to be covering this issue. We're going to unpack the announcement from California governor and the attorney general and Nancy Pelosi. And we're going to also unpack Todd Blanche's response on behalf of the Department of Justice. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck over there. This is Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Just a reminder before we dive in, if you like this content, remember to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We're talking today about Todd Blanche, Trump's failed private practice lawyer who's now somehow at the top of the Department of Justice. Where do we start with this issue, Brian?
Well, I don't know if you call him a failed lawyer. He just came in second when he represented Donald Trump, Shant, in his criminal trial. So is that a description of someone who's failed? Okay.
Yeah, when you come in second in a civil trial, that means you lost.
Or a criminal trial, because he came in second in the criminal trial.
Oh, in the criminal trial. Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this. And let's start by talking specifically about what Nancy Pelosi, the former speaker, the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, Rob Bonta, who's the attorney general of the state of California. And by the way, Rob Bonta, the attorney general of the state of California, I think has had the winningest record against the Trump administration, both in the first Trump administration and the second Trump administration, and the district attorney for San Francisco. So what they've done is they've come out and they've said, look, if these ICE agents keep violating the law, and let's be clear what we're talking about here. We're not talking about them executing a legal warrant or doing what they're supposed to do under the law, but violating people's civil rights, beating people up who have done absolutely nothing wrong, violating the Fourth Amendment by making warrantless searches and seizures, shooting tear gas into crowds when they have no justification for doing that. The state of California has said, we're going to start arresting these agents. And I think that is a terrific idea. And it's far time that they start arresting people who are actually operating outside the confines of the law. So let's just start with that.
Yeah. So you have basically on the one hand, you have California who wants to protect its own citizens. They look at their communities and they say, well, this is within our jurisdiction, right? States' rights. It's a very basic concept. And I think a concept very important to conservatives and people on the right. I think it is an important concept in general. I think everyone should believe in states' rights. So California says we want to enforce states' rights. We want to make sure that people operating in our jurisdiction follow the law, follow California law, follow federal laws. And they expressed this. It also involved, I think, San Francisco, the district attorney there, Brooke Jenkins, as well. So a number of people come together and they say, this is affecting our communities and we're going to enforce the law here. And you have Todd Blanche, who is, like a baby, just getting very upset over there. And he sends out this letter threatening to prosecute the governor of the state of California and people like Nancy Pelosi.
Right. I mean, well, remember, Sean, he's playing to an audience of one, which I consistently say with people in the Trump administration. They're always playing to an audience of one. They're always trying to keep Donnie happy. And if Donnie isn't happy, they could lose their job or worse, get prosecuted. Right. So let me be very clear. So I want to go now. I want to pivot now, if we can, if it's okay with you, to the letter he sent Newsom, Pelosi, Attorney General Bonta, and District Attorney Jenkins.
It's a great letter. Yeah. Yeah.
He came out and he said, first of all, he said, you are now engaged in a criminal conspiracy. Simply saying we're going to arrest people who violate the law is apparently now a criminal conspiracy to obstruct, impede, and oppose federal officers in the discharge of their duties. So let's just dissect that. Discharge of their duties. If a federal officer goes into a crowd without justification and uses his or her baton and beats somebody senseless, is that the discharge of an official duty?
No, it is not.
Correct.
Right. That's a crime. That's a crime. Right. In every state in the country, that would be a crime. Maybe there's some.
And it doesn't matter the Supremacy Clause, and let's talk about the Supremacy Clause, but the Supremacy Clause of the United States doesn't protect a federal officer who beats someone senseless without justification or probable cause.
Right.
So let's talk about the Supremacy Clause.
Sure. The Supremacy Clause gives pretty broad power to the federal government to preempt conflicting state law. That's what it is. So if the federal government has made laws in a certain area, you can't have state laws that conflict that federal law. That's not the case here. As you said, a federal agent committing a crime by beating someone that shouldn't be beat, that's a crime. It doesn't matter. It doesn't conflict with federal law to have that person be arrested. So
I can give two concrete examples of that. The first one is a federal officer or agent driving without a valid license gets pulled over and cited for not having a valid California license. Can't do that. That's the Supremacy Clause. The same person's driving along, gets drunk in a federal vehicle and is on duty and hits and kills a pedestrian. You can be prosecuted. That federal officer could be prosecuted. The Supremacy Clause does not apply. That is a perfect hypothetical.
That's right. That law, for example, drunk driving laws, criminal laws in a state are not preempted by federal laws. That's not some regulatory thing. That's a state criminal violation. By the way, what's interesting about someone being convicted under state law? Trump cannot pardon them for violating state laws, for being convicted under state laws, right? That's within the purview of government of a state.
They could make arguments to a judge that the arrest was unlawful because it violates the Supremacy Clause, and they can make those arguments, and we'll see where those arguments go. So then, now going back to failed defense attorney Todd Blanche's letter, he then goes on to accuse California officials of endangering the public because they're getting in the way of illegal immigration. I mean, of the enforcement of illegal immigration. And he makes the leap that beating innocent people and violating the Fourth Amendment and not having a search warrant, et cetera, he makes the leap to say that what you're actually doing is you are advocating for illegal immigrants and particularly criminals, human traffickers and drug smugglers. Those are exactly the people he comes out and says. So then he goes on and says, this is the best part. We're going to prosecute you, Governor, if you continue to go in this direction. We're going to prosecute you. So I think Newsom's response to that is bring it on.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's the appropriate response. What the part of the letter that I find fascinating, kind of my favorite part of the letter, is that it says federal agents and officers will continue to enforce federal law and will not be deterred by the threat of arrest by California authorities who have abdicated their duty to protect their constituents, period, end quote. How have these people abdicated their duty to protect their constituents when literally what they're trying to do is protect their constituents from threats of harm by these federal ICE agents or whatever other federal agents they are? I mean, it's really just weird. It's so backwards, and it's really the height of hypocrisy, right?
Well, let's just go through kind of what has been going on, because every single day there are news stories of people who are in the news media being beaten and struck to the ground. The story that I read within the last 24 hours is someone who was peacefully protesting by playing the Imperial March behind ICE agents, was not saying anything. It was actually on an iPhone, so it wasn't a giant loudspeaker. And he was taken to the ground and arrested. And other stories like that, which seem to happen every day. Apparently, there's already been 170 U.S. citizens detained by ICE improperly. And right now, there is no oversight. And there's no oversight whatsoever. So we have asked for transparency. As citizens, we've all asked for this. We said for transparency. We said, take off the mask. Let us know who you are. So this is the natural next step. So Trump, of course, is completely behind Nancy Pelosi and Senator Alex Padilla and Governor Newsom. He's completely supporting them, right, Shant?
No, he's not. He is pissed off, and this has really gotten his goat. And that's what's driving letters like what Todd Blanche sent. But I do think that there is some traction here. It is getting some traction here. Just when we're recording this, just moments before we hopped on this video, it was announced that in Oakland, at least, where there were planned ICE raids or immigration enforcement efforts or rounding up of American citizens and American people, Apparently some of those efforts have been canceled. And part of this comes, I think, as a response to, part of it is the product of California holding its ground and saying, if you commit crimes within the state, if you harm our citizens, we're going to come after you. And I think that's the way it should be. I think law enforcement should be operating within the confines of law as well. They should comply with California law here if they're going to come in and try to enforce laws in our state.
It's not just California law, Sean. It's also kind of the natural law. It's like you don't beat up people. Look, I think part of the problem here is there's been little or no training, little or no legal training for these officers. They're thugs. They're being told to go out on the street and do what they want to do because there's no oversight whatsoever. And as a result of that, they're consistently violating the law. And then my last thing on this is I just want to read exactly what Trump said about this. He said, quote, fake Newsom and Pelosi. Why are they fake? I want to understand. Are they fake people? Are they like robots? Okay. Fake Newsom and Pelosi are traitors to law and order. Lock them up. And now that's his quote. And then the House Judiciary, the Republicans want to hold hearings, which is great.
It's just wild. I don't know. Maybe they're fake because maybe he's talking about the fake Newsom. Maybe there's a fake Newsom out there. I don't know. But you're trying to make sense out of what President Trump says. So you're already, that's a losing battle to begin with. So, this is an interesting issue. We'll keep up to date on it. We'll keep you posted. It's moving quick. It's happening right here in our backyard, but it's also happening all over the country. We're out here in California, but we know it's happening everywhere else in other parts of the country too. So we'll keep you posted on it. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck over there. This has been another installment of Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Again, a reminder, if you like this content, please hit that subscribe button, share with us your feedback, share this with whoever you think needs to hear a different perspective on things that are happening and why these things matter. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.